Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Let me welcome you at our FP&A Trends Webinar. My name is Olga Rudakova. I'm FP&A professional and a data storytelling trainer. I'm happy to facilitate this event for you tonight, especially this topic is very close to my heart. As most of my corporate years, I've spent in the role of a finance business partner or finance co-pilot, as we used to call that. Today's event is devoted to digitized FP&A business partnering. That's where we stress the importance of new technology to performing that function. This topic has attracted 352 registrations from 46 different countries, quite a high number. Let's see what we can expect tonight. First of all, we will speak about evolution of digitized FP&A business partnering. Then we will see practical example from turnaround FP&A teams and perspectives. We will see whether non-financial indicators are more important than pure financial performance. We will certainly cover the role of modern technology. We will get to conclusions and recommendations, and eventually Q&A session. It is my pleasure to introduce our speakers and panelists to you. Please join me here on the camera. And I will start our introductions with Frédéric Labet. Frédéric is a group CFO for France at Dentsu International. He has over 30 years of finance experience with challenging US companies, combining controllership and extensive business partnering. He worked with market leaders such as Baxter Healthcare, Nike, Dell, and Tech Data. Frédéric, hello. We are delighted to have you with us today.
Hello, everybody, and I'm very pleased to participate today.
Our second speaker today will be Harsh Amarasuriya. Harsh is the global head of FP&A at Clyde Co. Over 20 years of practice, Harsh have developed extensive experience being a key strategic financial business partner to senior management at multiple multinational organizations. Harsh, welcome to the event, and thank you for taking time to join our discussion.
Thank you for having me, and happy to be here.
And the last speaker today will be Ben Page. Ben is Vice President, Solutions Consulting at Planful. Ben is a dynamic leader with hands-on experience defining and driving operational success by leveraging a consultative approach. Thank you, Ben, for being here with us this morning or afternoon or evening. Welcome, Ben.
Pleasure to be here.
We will start by thanking our sponsor, Planful, for making this event possible. Planful is a leading FP&A software platform. It is 100% software as a service. It supports end-to-end financial processes. If you are here with us tonight, you probably know FP&A Trends Group, or at least our digital community. More than that, we are international face-to-face community present in 33 cities, 19 countries, and on 4 continents. More than that, we offer broad educational research and consulting resources. So take your time to explore our activity even more. Tonight, we have 1 hour webinar. You will take part in 2 interactive polls. You will have chance to ask our panelists questions. You can do that via the chat box, and you can actually start now. Presentation is already available in the handout section of GoToWebinar, or you can receive it together with the recording after this meeting. At the very end, please do not leave right away. Take part in the brief survey. Your feedback is very important for us. Before we jump into practical examples and case studies from our panelists, I wanted to introduce you to our FP&A business partnering maturity model. That is actually a framework which allows you to assess and enhance your ability in terms of FP&A business partnering. It is segmented into 5 maturity levels across 6 dimensions. Those dimensions are approach, business acumen, degree of influence, skills, analytics, and technology. Let's have a look at our model. The first half of it is on this slide. Let's take an approach dimension. You see, at the basic level, we start with siloed corporate focus, when finance works alone, separated from other departments, which does not allow us to see the big picture. Eventually, gradually through intermediate stages, we gain this collaboration between first finance and operations, eventually with other functions, getting to fully integrated collaborative approach at the leading stage. If we look at some other example here, on the second half of the model, we can look at skills dimension. We start with lack of confidence and limited storytelling and persuasion skills. We learn throughout the way, growing storytelling and persuasion, eventually getting to the effective communicator level with strong ability to persuade and aid in making decisions. If you look at the technology angle, which will be explored a lot during this webinar, you see that we start with Excel-based processes, not so strong tools. Eventually, we get to more advanced models, adding driver-based planning models, adding planning and analytical tools, and getting to predictive and prescriptive analytics using artificial intelligence. I certainly suggest you explore this model in more detail, because you will have these slides available, and use it as a self-assessment tool for your FP&A business partnering function. Meanwhile, we will move to practical examples, and we will start with a practical case from Frederick Labe. Frederick will speak about turnaround FP&A teams and perspectives. Frederick, the stage is yours.
Thank you, Olga. And hi again, everybody. As Olga mentioned in the introduction, I've been lucky to work in very diverse industries, between pharmaceutical or IT, technology, distribution, or Nike, and now in a communication service company. So all very different. But actually, if we look at the FP&A situation, which happened when I was joining, if I look retroactively, most of them were around between 1 and 2 in terms of maturity. In each of them, the company was rescued, and myself, because they were very dedicated people doing their best to compensate a lot of the weaknesses of the FP&A organization. If we look briefly at the few criteria, in terms of approach, it was really a standalone department. There were even some fights with other departments. I think we're all familiar with such things with HR or sales or marketing. From a business acumen, most of the resources were actually coming from accounting. I mean, nothing wrong with being an accountant, but it's not the same business approach and the same way of dealing with the business. The KPI were defined years ago and not really relevant anymore to the business, but nobody really cared. Quite logically, the influence was really low. FP&A was a data provider, not providing really advice or insight in the data. I mean, purely from providing a huge database, the bigger the better, which is of course not the right approach. And as a consequence, FP&A was not part of many important forums where the real company business was discussed and decided. From a soft skills point of view, it was not really considered as relevant. I mean, hard skills and long hours, which were very real, was the most important point. Analytics was usually retroactive or reactive. When you look at the prior year, 6 months later, I mean, nobody cares anymore, even if you spend a lot of time, and that's a lot of frustration. And finally, as you could expect, the technology was not there either, relying on the spreadsheet, little quality control. So that was, all in all, not a very exciting perspective, but once again, supported by a very strong team. what we can look at now is what kind of key priorities I was putting in order to turn around these FP&A teams. And the first priority really for me was not really FP&A by itself, it was the connection to the business partner and ensuring we can recreate trust and communication with the CEO or the business leader or the managing director, depending on the industry, and also with the CFO or the local finance director. So this sponsorship was really almost a day one activity to get a good assessment. And also to share the vision with the full FP&A team, not being just the leader without speaking to your team, because in FP&A team usually are not very large, so you need really everybody to be involved in that turnaround. Working with the CEO and CFO is also to identify the expectation, what is the balance between putting the basics back right, which often was not the case, and not promising a maturity 5, a dreamland, everything is magic. That doesn't happen overnight. So definitely data quality, fixing the basics, sometimes cutting production. It's better to develop and distribute good few reports and megabytes of them, and putting more quality, adding the comments, not the automatic comments, and adding the qualitative to the quantity. And last but not least, obviously, identify the team skills, develop some individuals, reorient some others which were not in the right place. But all in all, it's a question of trust. It's a lot of work and practical hands-on work, but also trust with the business partners and from the FP&A team in itself. So after these priorities, there were quite a few other areas which we can look at now. And that's, if you can move to the next slide, thank you. Clearly is to align the responsibilities and who does what within finance. FP&A is obviously working with accounting, with accounts payable, with treasury, and depending on the organization. Also within FP&A, not everybody does everything. And of course with other stakeholders like HR, procurement, operations, facilities, again, depending on your industry and who are the other stakeholders. So really to create that relationship with other stakeholders to avoid gaps, but also avoid overlap is really critical. Then it's to extend, and I really believe strongly in this, the connection level between each FP&A member and their relevant business partner. So really to create this couple, if I can use that word, between the FP&A and the business partner, and they really become almost a two in a box, as people were saying at Dell. That's a nice expression, which I like. There are two co-pilots. You were also using that word, Olga. Then once you have this, obviously the system options are really important, looking at more automation, automatic quality control, self-service, so that your team in FP&A can spend more time either to develop or to advise. And then last but not least, I'm a strong believer of finance training for non-finance, to understand the basics of what is a P&L, what is cash flow, what is the balance sheet. And it's always amazing to see how far some people can be from what we consider as just basics. I mean, which I would not state here, but just a difference between cash and P&L that seems obvious for all of us. It is definitely not for everybody. So that's a big of work, but it's always pays afterward because it's raising question and it's creating the trust, which is really important. But overall, building the infrastructure of the systems, of the teams, and ensuring there is this network, this web, we can almost say, of FP&A around the organization with the business partners, with the stakeholders, is really important. So in terms of structure of the team, if we move to the last point, obviously the best individuals cannot match all the 6 maturity criteria. You need in your team a diversity and development of skills, of experience. Some people coming from the business, some people coming more with an engineering performance, and some with a more traditional FP&A experience. Obviously, you will need some people who are more analytical, who like to play in the system, and they will also, that's also a way to have in-house, meaning in the team, some strong IT skills. That's really something I was learning over the years. And of course, these skills must evolve. You don't need the same skills today than 10 years ago, or of course, tomorrow. With AI and all the development, you need to have your skills, the skills of your team evolving. And then some other people in your team should be more influential, more business partners. Not only they should understand the metrics, but also, probably even more important, be able to explain them what are the key financial drivers and what are the levers which the business can use. So clearly matching the skill set with the maturity and the evolution of your maturity is something which is really, really critical. So that's actually in a nutshell what I was doing through this turnaround in terms of priorities. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Frederick, for giving us your practical experience and actually illustrating how we can move on from early maturity stages to more advanced ones. Thank you so much for that. And it brings us nicely to the first polling question for today. But before I ask you a question, dear audience, I would like to remind you that you can ask our participants questions. You can start now. You can ask Frederick. You can ask his fellow panelists as well. Let's move on to our polling question. And I would like to ask all of you, and let me launch this question first and read it out to you. Which maturity angle should be a priority to address to turn around FP&A? Out of all these 6 maturity angles, which one do you consider the most important? Is it approach, business acumen, skills and degree of influence, analytics, and technology? So let's see which of these angles our audience considers the most important. Approach, business acumen, skills and degree of influence, and analytics and technology. Most of you have already voted, so let me close this poll and share the results with all of you. Quite interesting result here. Almost even distribution, but with one definite leader. Analytics and technology has gained 34% of all the answers. Then we have even distribution for skills, degree of influence, business acumen, and approach. Frederick, what do you think? Are you surprised at all?
I'm actually not so surprised, because really from my experience, all of them are a priority and you cannot afford to just forget one of them. It's true that analytics and technology here is coming stronger, and I was not dismissing it. Now it's a question of which can you do first, obviously, because technology takes time, and most of the time you don't have time, and you need to move on. So having the skills and the trust with the partner that really see as a priority. Obviously, as you move on time, you need to have the better technology. So it's really a question of the priority if you look at your first 100 days, your first year, and your first 5 years.
Right. Thank you so much for that comment. And it brings us to our joint discussion on the related topic. So that's here, I'll ask all our panelists to join us on the camera, and we will discuss how we can actually achieve that. We discussed our FP&A, all these angles. Now we can speak about how can FP&A become an influencer and trusted advisor with full decision-making involvement. How can we, as FP&A, get more active seat at the decision-making table? And let me start here with you, Harsh. What do you think?
Yeah, I think for me, interesting to see the results of that poll, because I mean, I think it represents where we as FP&A professionals are coming from. We are more technical, we are more analytical. Most of our backgrounds are in finance, but I think when you talk to the business, they would prefer us to be more, I think, on the soft skill side, on the business acumen side, trying to use an approach that influences business decision making and not always be sort of engrossed in pure analytics all the time. And I think that too, even personally, it's sort of a mindset shift. And I think that's where the true FP&A teams, and as you go across the maturity curve, I think even on the slide, we've sort of referred to XP&A and things like that, where you go across pure financials and you're beginning to sort of link the dots and think about the bigger picture, which is where I think FP&A professionals actually bring a lot of value to the decision-making process.
Right. Thank you for this answer. Let me move on to you, Ben. What do you think? How we can be more involved in decision making?
Yeah, I think I would agree with Harsh. In many cases, I think one of the issues with finance folks is we're so ingrained in the mechanics and the analytics that we forget the people side of it. And so I think a lot of it is to help be that educator and that person who really bridges the gap between folks that are not finance professionals and people who are out in the business and operational, and try to help educate them on why it matters. And to do that, we all have to make sure that we're able to do that as well. So there's a little bit of us helping educate and be that person who's assisting the business, and not just telling them because the metric says so, because that metric is just a number and there's much more reasons behind the data itself. So I think by being able to make sure that we're up to date on all of our skills and our understanding, and then helping our business understand why that's important, I think it endears you to them, and it builds a much stronger relationship where they will rely upon you to help them with their IQ, their financial IQ as well.
Great. Let me pass it back to you, Frederick. I know that you have answered this question to great extent through your slides, but if you have something to it, how we can become better influencers and advisors?
I think we have to acknowledge and be humble that you cannot wake up in the morning and say, okay, today I'm an influencer, and like today I'm an extrovert if you are more introvert. I mean, you cannot decide. That's a long process. It's work actually. And it's going, as Ben and Harsh were saying, it's also coming through experience and learning up the ladder about becoming a small influencer and then a bigger influencer, if I may say. So it's a lot of work, it's a lot of connection. Also, what could be seen as useless connection or lost time. Actually, you never lose time being with your business partner. That's also an important point. Maybe you say, okay, what am I doing here in this meeting? But actually, you are learning, you are connecting, and you are becoming more of an influencer. So don't be afraid to lose your time.
Nice, very nice answers from all of you. Thank you for that. And it brings us to the second presentation of the evening. It will be delivered by Harsh Amarasuriya, and we will be speaking about non-financial indicators probably being more important or maybe less important than pure financial performance. Let's see. Harsh, the stage is yours. I think you're still on mute.
Sorry about that. As I was saying, it's a nice segue from what we were talking about, because I'd like to start by sort of, in my personal, my current role at Clyde, which is a global law firm, we've been trying to sort of encourage a more holistic approach to metrics and dashboards and things like that. And we're trying to ground that understanding in somewhat an old concept of the balanced scorecard. So balanced scorecard has been around for 30 plus years. It was coined by two Harvard professors, back in '92. And effectively what they encourage businesses, and they did a lot of research around it, said that decision making is a lot more powerful when you bring a cross-functional approach to the multifacets of that decision. And they've effectively broken down, originally they broke it down into four. Through my career, I've seen different businesses use 6 or 8, depending on what's appropriate to your own business. But currently we are looking at 4 what we would think are quite fundamental to a professional services business, the financial perspective, a customer perspective, internal business processes, and learning and growth. And what I've listed out here are a couple of the key metrics that we look at under each of those categories. So when you look at financials, obviously, revenue, contribution, margin, your own businesses will have a few other metrics that are core, but those are relatively easily understood, highly, sort of distributed across different leader groups and business groups within your own organizations, and always have been the historic benchmarks that you would, always fall back on. But now when you start overlaying some of the other metrics, so for example, customer perspectives, you would be looking at, things like customer satisfaction or speed to delivery or SLA compliance for certain clients or things like that, which may not always be traditional metrics that senior leadership always looked at. So that brings in a different perspective, and generally what we try to do is to understand what are lead and lag indicators. Some things like customer satisfaction is a lag indicator. So your customer satisfaction will drop after you've eroded your service level, for example, right? Or your customer satisfaction scores will go up once you've done the work to actually improve your service levels to your customers. So those are lag. But then you also have lead indicators, and lead ones to us are things like the numbers of projects you're working on, or the numbers of new clients you're sort of opening on a daily basis. And so those become preemptive indicators that would indicate whether your financial metrics are either going the right way or not, right? And that's why we're trying to bring those two together. And then, of course, as my panelists have already mentioned, people are quite important, particularly in a professional services organization. Our primary resource is the people that we manage, and we try to keep motivated. So we always look at internal metrics around the people, and trying to monitor their sort of more morale levels, which is harder to do, and particularly for financial people, sometimes not so comfortable to do as well, because they're not black or white. They are open to multiple interpretations. But we have started to sort of monitor things like turnover, progression, exits, how many people are leaving. We're trying to understand more about the key reasons why people leave, and particularly in law firms, professional services firm, people do tend to move around quite a lot. And I mean, that's in some aspects those are positive, it could be a positive, but there could be business negatives in having those things as well. Now, if you move on to the next slide, what I've tried to do is to present how we monitor these internally. And what you see at the bottom left is our traditional 4-quadrant numeric dashboard. And what we are beginning to link to that, and this is where technology is playing a large role, because it's enabling us to visualize numbers in a far more intuitive way. And to an earlier point that Frederick said, enables non-financial people to actually understand, what could be the impact. So what you see on the top right is a Power BI dashboard of office utilization. Now, that's not a financial metric, but it's purely looking at, how do people use offices? This became quite important post-COVID, where, lots of people didn't quite know what to expect, and would people always be coming to office? Would they prefer to be in office? Would they be more productive if they're in office as opposed to be working from home? So which is why we're trying to link these two together to sort of say, okay, is there a correlation between productivity and office visits in particular geographies and particular teams? Does that impact the people's morale in those organizations? Does it in those locations? And at the end of the day, does that improve or deteriorate the top line, which is revenue? And we've also brought in other metrics. So, it all depends on what's important for your own business. And, there could be things like rates, there could be things like utilization, there could be, the numbers of new projects you all have on, or various other things that helps you create that story. And I think FP&A people are well placed to actually look at the bigger picture and to paint that story for non-financial people. And for my own organization, what I've tried to correlate at the top right, top left, is on the 6 perspectives of the maturity curve, where I think we are sort of falling. And we are trying to, I think we are all on a journey of understanding and improving. And what I've tried to present there is on different aspects. Personally, I think we are at different levels of that maturity curve. So if you look at approach, we do have a structured collaboration type model. So I would sort of place ourselves in a 3, but we are quite far from having a totally integrated approach where all functions would, work collaboratively together, use the same tools, understand all of the same metrics and its drivers. From a business acumen, certainly growing, depending on who you ask. Obviously some business partners are far better at business acumen because of their experience and their exposure, and others are not, but that's always a moving target. Degree of influence, I think we are getting to that 4s and 5s, because we are trying to link different things. Soft skills, analytics, we are sort of in the middle, probably getting towards more, getting more mature and more advanced. And technology, depending on who you ask, I have placed ourselves in a 2, because we are beginning to use more business analytic tools and dashboards and things like that. But it all depends on where your own organization has been coming from, right? So if you look at some industries, they are far more analytical than perhaps professional services are, and they would look at us and probably say we are a 1. But then if you look at small organizations that, are still very Excel based, very manual, then we are probably, in comparison to where they are, probably higher up on the scale. But I hope that sort of resonates with where I think FP&A people sort of can add value in this whole journey. Back to you, Olga.
Thank you so much, Harsh. First of all, for demonstrating how we can use our FP&A business partnering maturity model as a self-diagnostic tool, and for showing us how we can move further along this development, along these stages by linking non-financial performance with financial one. Great presentation. If you have any questions to Harsh, please ask them now through our chat box. And I will ask you a question as well, because we are approaching our second polling question now. So the question goes like that. How strong is your FP&A team understanding of your organization and business environment? In other words, how good your FP&A team is understanding non-financial performance indicators? So option 1 is limited internal and external knowledge. Option 2, growing knowledge of internal and external environment. Option 3, good internal and external knowledge. We are getting there. And the last one is holistic understanding of the entire organization and environment. So let's see, because actually most of you have voted already. So let me close this poll and you will see quite interesting results here. The absolute winner is growing knowledge of internal and external environment. That's a great answer. People are developing, people are getting there. We have 21%, quite strong number as well for good internal and external knowledge. Less, 11% for limited internal and external knowledge, and only 5%. But actually, I think that's a great number because it's absolute ultimate level of holistic understanding of entire organization and environment. Harsh, what do you think? Are you surprised by the results?
No, I'm not actually. I think it's reassuring that how I feel about my own organization is what I think the general audience is sort of depicting there. I think we are all striving for that holistic approach, but depending on the complexity of our businesses, that's quite a difficult thing to get to. And we are all recognizing that, and I think that's a positive, to recognize that we still have a long way to go before we get that full holistic holy grail type approach.
Indeed, indeed. And I hope that today's webinar will actually help us to get further and gain more of this knowledge, because now we are going to discuss with all the fellow panelists how we can improve our knowledge of internal and external environment, understanding those business drivers, understanding these non-financial indicators. And let me start here with you, Ben. What do you think? How can we get there?
Well, I think it all starts with ourselves just remaining curious, right? Having our own personal drive to continue our education, continue our learning. I think at the end of the day, if kind of thinking back to the last question, if you want to be an influencer, if you want to be looked at as a leader in your organization, then you need to present yourself that way. But that's not to assume that you know everything that you need to know. So there's going to have to be that investment in yourself to go continue your learnings in your business. The way I've done that in my prior life was I would spend a lot of time with people outside of my normal group and talk things that, operations of the business. And then I would take that back and I would try to cultivate the learnings and my knowledge. So I think it's just a matter of like remaining curious, remaining motivated. And if you need somebody else to kind of motivate you to go learn more, then you may not be in the right job, right company, right position, because you should just genuinely be interested in your career and moving that forward, or at least increasing your level of knowledge and IQ.
Amazing. Thank you for this answer, Ben. And let me move on to you, Frederick. What do you think? How can we reach the advanced levels of business acumen?
I mean, I'm 200% with the curiosity topic, and so I will not repeat everything, but clearly to meet with your marketing people to understand what are the next generation products or services coming up. Follow your competitors, follow the industry. If you manage, try to go to trade shows. I mean, in many industries, you have a lot of trade shows which are almost open. What I would add on top is that you should indeed connect deeply with salespeople, marketing, really to understand what are the key drivers. And if you can, I mean, get in touch with vendors or customers. I mean, I know it's not that easy, but that would be also a very good way to improve your level.
Great piece of advice as well. Let me pass it back to you, Harsh. Obviously, you covered a lot of that in your presentation, but if you have anything to add, what would that be?
Yeah. I mean, the main thing I'd add, I think, and I do agree with everything Frederick and Ben just mentioned, but also as an individual, particularly young people out there who are working in FP&A, raise your hand, get involved with projects, get involved with things that may be outside of FP&A, finance. Even if you get the opportunity, do a year in another team or something like that, right? I think personally, no experience is wasted experience. I think Frederick mentioned that earlier. And particularly as juniors, the more different types of things you do, and it might be just getting involved with a operational project and you're just helping out or something, but it at least opens your perspective of things, and that helps you become a really useful business partner later on in your career.
Thank you. Thank you for all these answers. And we already at the last presentation of today's webinar. So what we'll hear now, we'll hear Ben Page speaking about the role of modern technology. Ben, the stage is yours.
Thanks, Olga. Yeah, I think, to talk about technology, the first place we need to start is just the landscape for FP&A. Where are we at today? We still continue to see that there's way too much friction in finance. There's still a lot of manual processes. There's still a lot of non-value added activities that take place. Believe it or not, spreadsheets are still the predominant tool used. I would imagine for this audience, that's not a shock to hear. And spreadsheets have a need and a goal and a purpose, but they are not the end all be all, especially as you get into wanting to be more nimble and look at your business in different ways. And we'll talk a little bit about that. We think that FP&A really should be a team sport. So it doesn't do us a whole lot of good for us to own all the knowledge, just like the other gentlemen have spoken about. We need other people to be invested in the process. We need other people to help educate us and have that be a continuous process of learning and improvement. And whether you like it or not, AI and artificial intelligence, it's here. It's not going anywhere. It's now just going to grow. It's going to become more ingrained in our day-to-day lives over time. And then I think the last piece to really call out is software as a service it's the future, and it's here, and it's the prevailing technology. And there's a number of reasons for that. I think investment to a business, the ability to have somebody else keep you up on the most modern technology. So the legacy systems of going and buying a bunch of servers and putting it in a closet and then having to go maintain and reinvest in hardware, those days are kind of gone. So the days of what we probably, many of us knew finance as, it's changing. It's changing very, very quickly. So if we go to the next slide, we could talk a little bit about, why technology? What's it going to do for you that maybe you don't have today? First and foremost, it's just efficiency. As we are talking about today, how do we get further down the maturity model? And part of that is we have to learn, and we've got to learn what we do know about the business and what there's still to be learned about the business. And the best way to do that is do it in an efficient manner. We also recognize that, especially today with all the news that we hear about data breaches, security is critical, and it's only getting harder. There's a lot of folks out there who are really doing things without the best interest of others in mind, and so kind of guarding that data of your business, your clients, your organization, it's going to just continue to be much more challenging. So we always have to do all of this work with security in mind. It's one of those areas where I firmly believe you can never put enough energy into security. It's a journey. You've never ever reached your destination. Functionality is something that comes out all the time, especially as I mentioned with software as a service. One of the value propositions is they continue to release new functionality. And that can be little things to make you more efficient. It can be more to have it be more secured. It could be things in the realms of AI and ML. So new functionality in technology is always at the kind of the heartbeat of these companies and what they're trying to provide you as a client or as a customer. As a finance professional, ex-accountant, the biggest thing in my mind is, yeah, efficiency is great and security is wonderful, but the thing that would keep me awake at night is risk. Risk mitigation, and that could be from all aspects of your business. The risk of not having the proper line of sight of things that are happening in the economy and being late to the game, or the risk in security of your data. I mean, that's the thing that keeps a lot of high-level finance professionals awake at night, because there's real ramifications to a person's career if they don't get it right. So technology is also something that's going to provide you more comfort in having that confidence that your information is protected, the risk to you not understanding what's happening in your business moving forward, different scenarios, things of that nature. Just the pure computing power. I mean, data is becoming, I guess, a luxury to this point, where organizations that we talk to every day, we're talking earlier, the analytics, they need more and more and more data. Now, I do think there's a point of paralysis where we get to a tipping point where we actually become less efficient because we have too much data and we don't know what to do with it. But if you don't have the computing power to even deal with it, If you think back to what Harsh was showing with his KPIs and the measuring of the business, you've got to have computing power to do that type of stuff. So technology is going to allow you to not be limited in large data sets and being nimble with that information. And then again, the other thing that you just can't do enough of is, scenarios. So economic conditions change, business conditions change. Are you making an acquisition, a divestiture? Do you have new lines of business? Do you find out that you need to either give a price increase to a customer or potentially fire if you're losing money with them? It's hard to do that without some sort of technology to assist. So these are a lot of the reasons why, yes, you can do that with spreadsheets. It takes a lot of effort and there's a lot of risk because I challenge anybody to go Google Excel errors or spreadsheet errors in financial results, and it's a frightening experience to read those things. So technology, it just gives you a platform. It doesn't solve your knowledge level. It's something that's complementary to that maturity curve of your business. So let's go ahead. We'll go to the next slide. Talk a little bit about, what does best in class look like? And this is a journey. This is not a destination. Just as we did with the polling earlier, you never really get to that level of being, fully mature because things change too quickly. But, start with integrating your data. Go get data from your system so that you can do all of the analysis and work with your data. Find those folks. And I thought it was great, the call out of young people. They are curious and they are very intelligent, and we should probably look to them instead of holding them back and say they're not experienced enough. Maybe let them sit at the table and see where their minds are. They're very smart. They've got technology ingrained in their education. They're thinking about things a little bit different than some of us, probably as we came up. Increasing your cycles by having that data integrated into your process. So try to do more. Fail early, fail small, right? We don't want big failures, but you learn a lot from the things that you miss. So increasing those cycles allows you to look at different environments, different scenarios, take different assumptions, and be able to learn from that. Even to the point of rolling forecasts, this old static once a year budget, and then maybe doing a reforecast once a year. The environment's changing too quickly. You need to get more into a driver-based rolling forecast and make sure that, again, thinking back to the maturity curve, much more mature processes are doing those types of activities. The driver-based planning is just using the things that you're aware of in your business, right? So rather than just looking at financial information, go look at the operational data. There's a lot to glean from that, and a lot that you can utilize to help drive your business. Things generally repeat unless you put some sort of force against it to change it. So why not take a look at what the trend of your business has been, look at those drivers, and again, do more cycles. And then again, whether you like it or hate it, depending on who you talk to, AI and ML, it's kind of a scary word for some, but it's here. And I do think that there is value there for just about every business and every person. Where you are on your level of acceptance, it doesn't all have to be the same for everybody. So crawl, walk, run. The way I look at it is, using that type of technology to help me find anomalies in my data. I could never have enough people to go scan my data and find errors. It's a great use of AI and ML. The algorithms will find, they'll expose information in your data. And then ultimately you could get to the point where you're doing forecast forward projections on things like DSO, DPOs, turns, units sold, or megawatts of energy used. So things that it's really tough to just scale by people. The machine learning, the artificial intelligence is going to allow us to do more with the same. I've said it a number of times. So scenarios, go look at good, better, best. What happens if we do something different in one of our lines of business? Probably things that you're doing today, just increasing the cycle times, increasing the versions, and seeing if you can find anything, any little nugget of information that you could then present. And again, that helps you from a business intelligence standpoint and just having the conversations with your organization. And then just learn as much as you possibly can. Learning has to be a daily thing. We never know everything. And so I would challenge everybody to say, if you think you know it all, you probably don't. And learning can be fun. It can be interesting. It should be fun and interesting. Sometimes the problem is it's just there's so much information. It's hard to understand what's really valuable and what's not valuable. So we'll go to the last slide here. And really thinking about technology, what are the long-term benefits? Outside of all those things that I've talked about from a day-to-day perspective and just kind of how you look at technology, I think you really kind of take a step back and say, what are we going to get out of this? Well, we're going to support your changing business environment. So you can have confidence that as your business changes, you will be as prepared as you can be to address and analyze and make sure that you're not caught off guard. Things are going to happen. Technology will allow you to be as timely as you possibly can. It's going to allow you to do more with the same. I tell people it's great, to be able to hire people. It's part of my job that I'm really excited about is when I get to go and hire new folks, onboard them and just have these new, fresh ideas. But at some point, as a steward of the business, scaling through more people may not be always the best answer. So being able to do more, be more efficient with the same folks that you have, it's something that technology is going to allow you to do. We've talked about it this, today earlier on. Being a better business partner will help you personally. It's going to help you professionally. It's going to help your team. It really is just going to allow you to get more ingrained, and they look at you as a more valuable member of the team, not just the, I hate the term, but the bean counter, a finance person, an accounting person. You are a true business partner to them. And for all the folks on your team, better talent retention. So if you could make their job a little bit more interesting, and remove some of the drudgery of some of the things that we do for the non-valued items, it really helps you retain that talent. It increases their knowledge. It promotes them from within. It's a really exciting thing to see happen, and technology will help you do that. And then I think, just more broadly for your company, having this technology, having you be that business partner, what you're ultimately doing is you're increasing the business, the financial IQ of your overall business. And so as your business gets smarter, more intelligent, further along that maturity curve, you're really prepared for anything. You're prepared for, the pandemic. I like to put it behind me, but yet the reality of that was it was probably a great learning experience for organizations to find out how prepared or unprepared they were for really big changes. So by helping your folks become more nimble, more efficient, more educated, increasing that IQ of your business, it really is just saying we're prepared for anything, and we're very confident in our ability to support that business no matter where things go.
Thank you so much, Ben, for your presentation and for connecting technology to much longer term benefits for the whole organization. I actually think that we'll jump right into Q&A session. We have so many questions from the audience today. Thank you to all of you who've been sending questions to us. So I'll ask all the panelists to join us on the camera. And I will start with a question to you, Frederick. Let me read it out loud to you. In my experience, the transformation of FP&A is always subject to organizational support. In other words, the appetite for the organization for the change. How can we better convince corporate leaders to support this transformation and avoid being wetted up by corporate politics? So how to convince corporate leaders to support this transformation moving along this maturity model?
Yeah, actually, in my experience, there was always support from corporate, because from the general organization. You see, the politics can be at play. Clearly, is to demonstrate, which is going to be easy to do, is the value of proper information, proper insight, and how to, depending on the context, how to move from a data provider to an insight provider, which you can quite easily demonstrate. I believe. I mean, it's difficult to go to stay general on such a precise topic, but I believe that's we can demonstrate through the past or through the future experience.
Great answer, Frederick. Thank you for that. And let me move on to you, Harsh. I have a question to you. I will read it out. Do you still consider the role of FP&A business partner a part of accounting process, meaning still part of closing procedures, preparations of calculations, and so on, or rather a separate function in organization, much more in touch with business?
I think we are heading down the route of it being a separate function. And I think that's where technology is actually helping along that transition. So if you look at most mature businesses, the normal posting of journals and the normal closing of the financial books either would be happening in a shared service center outside of the co-operational activities, or they'll be leveraging technology to do a lot of that sort of stuff, right? So I think even as a general accounting profession, I think very few of us actually go into the detail of debits and credits and where the journal was actually posted and all of those things. The systems just take care of those things for you, right? You got to know enough to check it and to validate it. But I think as an FP&A function, personally, my team's getting less and less involved in those sort of things. We will validate some things, we'll check some things, but it's more to make sure that from a data accuracy and governance perspective, rather than has it hit the right debit and credit and all of that sort of stuff. So it is evolving, I think.
Great, thank you for this answer. It actually reminds me of our earlier discussion whether a finance business partner needs to have a proper accounting training.
Exactly.
Probably not at all if we are speaking about separate function here. Great answer. And let me move on to you, Ben. I have a question addressed specifically to you.
Sure.
It goes like that. Thank you, Ben. Would it be possible to share concrete examples of how a company operating in multiple markets is applying best-in-class focus? I understand that we don't have a time for full case study and you don't have to name companies for the sake of confidentiality, but if you can give a bit of practical example.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, it's not unusual to work with businesses who it kind of, with what Harsh was talking about of finance folks and what accounting does, and those activities are still happening, and it's still highly inefficient for many of these international businesses. So I'll give you an example. A business is over here in the States, maybe the headquarters is in London. US has to close their books, then they have to send all the data over to London, then they start their process. Well, we can take that challenge out of that process by having the data flowing on in a regular cadence. What it allows everybody to do is do the thing that they need to do, and now you don't have the bottlenecks of data. It allows people to shorten down cycle times of close processes and even their planning processes. Lots of these very large international businesses will go from what used to take 3 or 4 months to do a budget, and they can do it in a couple of weeks, not because they are that much more efficient. They've also looked at the process and they've addressed the process and how they want to do it. They say, let's manage to the exceptions. Let's go have more folks in the business contribute. So you've got a larger population. But international businesses are able to take advantage of this technology. Whereas if I'm still in a spreadsheet type environment, I as a FP&A person have to send something to you. I have to update something. I'm the bottleneck of something getting done. So technology just allows you to kind of get out, share the wealth, give you computing power, shorten down cycle times, and we see it every day.
Great, great. Thank you so much for that. You're actually answering another question about shorter cycles as well. Thank you everyone for sending your questions in. I wish we could answer more, but we'll try to answer at least some of them in writing after the webinar. And that Q&A session brings us to a nice close. What's left for me to do is to invite you to the upcoming webinars. The one will be very soon on 10th of July about the latest trends and developments in FP&A. Certainly I've registered for that. Another one already extends to the fall. On 25th of September, we will discuss the topic from insights to impact, unveiling the potential of P&A scenario management. I would like to thank our sponsor again for making this event possible. Planful is a leading FP&A software platform. More than that, I would like to show you all the channels, how you can connect to us, to FP&A Trends, whether it's our website, LinkedIn, YouTube channel, or X, you can connect to us. Don't leave just yet. Please fill in the short survey right after the webinar. It's less than 2 minutes, and your feedback helps us improve every time. I would like to thank all of you for joining us to this live webinar. I would like to thank all of you, our panelists, for sharing your insights and your wisdom with us. Enjoy the rest of your day and see you very soon at the next FP&A Trends webinar. Goodbye, everyone.
Thank you. Nice, good to be here.
Goodbye.